Now, these two diagrams on the bottom left and on the right are from our policies and procedures. Earlier on, approximately a year ago, because ATU is in the process of well, we're formed a few years, but we're still working on policies and procedures. So these are work in progress, but the idea is that we have slotted into two stages of our program development. We identified the very first stage where you're doing the initial concept, and then the fourth stage where you're doing the detailed development of your program. And this is the two areas where you needed our program teams needed support and assistance, and it was two places where we could actively bring the teams from the Intuitive project into the process. So in order to sort of substantiate what we were doing, this is a slide from our quality office assistance registrar Carmel Brennan from last January, where she herself produced the themes of the Intuitive project, and she aligned it with our own design policy at the time. Our academic module manager, this is I suppose the computer system behind managing our program design and our development and the documentation around that. And then we go through a formal process, and we have panel meetings and reviews. And the three key areas that Carmel identified across each of the various aspects was sustainability, academic integrity, employability. There will be an argument made for the digital transformation. UDL and EDI is almost a given that they should be there, or people understand that they would be there. So it gave great support towards integrating the curriculum framework into the whole policy and procedure in a formal manner. In order to support it, we also looked at research from around both internationally and nationally, but the key one that we aligned with was from Dr. Geraldine O'Neill in Dublin, and the curriculum design process that she had identified. So the process there is on the right-hand side, and Geraldine had identified six key stages in an iterative basis. And we sort of aligned that to our process, which at that time was linear. We were in the process of coming up with a more detailed diagram of it, but our initial step of our planning and scoping, which would be the conceptual stage of any program design, aligns very much with 1 and 2 in Dr. O'Neill's process for a program in education philosophy and your curriculum models. Then as we go through further to our outline plan, permission and detailed development, it would bring in the sort of the 3 and 4 for the outline, and for 5 and 6 for our detailed development. So again, it gave a strong focus that what we were trying to do not only aligned with Intuitive themes, but with the research in relation to curriculum and program design as well. So currently we are looking at, well, how do we frame what we're going to do and what Ellen and Sean are going to demonstrate and show you in a few minutes into our process. So we have 2 diagrams at the moment that we're working on. They're not finalized, neither ourselves, as in myself, Ellen or Sean, are completely happy with it, and we've been talking to our quality office as well. So there's a lot of conversation at the moment deciding how do we graphically represent what we're trying to do here. So that's very much work in progress, but the idea is that it's not linear. It is more of an iterative process with linear aspects to it. And at each stage, or different stages in the development process, we will have key inputs. The first one is going to be the curriculum toolkit that Ellen is going to demonstrate in a minute. And this is very much based on the 6 themes of Intuitive, but the idea is that if I, as part of a development team, wanted to find out, well, how is the best way of integrating sustainability? For example, I can go to the toolkit at a very high level, I can see what's involved, but then there's levels of detail. So you could go to the next level and find more information. The hardest part is curating the detail that's there to ensure that the most relevant research or relevant papers or information is available to our staff very quickly and very easily. But depending on their requirements, they can go deeper and deeper. So Ellen will show that in a minute. And that's the first step for our programme team, to look at the bigger aspects of the themes. And then as we go through the process, the ideas that we've identified, so 6 areas are touch points between the supports and teaching and learning and the development team. So from the research and needs analysis side, there's going to be online tools and self-paced information pieces for the development team members to work through. We have our plan to have various videos and workshops in the course design. Program learning outcomes, we have developed and used Lego Series Play very successfully. So we have given maybe an hour or an hour and a half of a Lego Series Play workshop to the development team in person in a room. And within an hour afterwards, we have seen a team draft their program learning outcomes, which traditionally is a task that can be very onerous, very difficult, fraught with issues. But after the Lego Series Play, within an hour they've drafted it. It was quite amazing to watch. The program structure and mapping is the one that Sean is going to introduce. So that is originally a paper-based one. With various cards and maps, and we're developing the Miro boards that Sean is going to develop. Then the teaching learning assessment strategies is an area that we have to work on yet, and that's an area that, again, is difficult for program development teams to specify what should be in their strategy, or how do you build a strategy, or what should be in the strategy, because we all have our module strategies, but what should be in the program level strategy and how that should be built. So we're looking at supports there. And then for the module design phase, which will be the last phase of the detailed design, there is the ABC workshop that has been in place for a number of years in ATU and working very, very successfully. So Sean is going to give you an overview of the program, the number 4 there, the program structure and mapping workshop. And Ellen is going to give you the overview of the toolkit. And that's me. Thank you very much. Stop sharing.
Thanks, Noreen.
Okay, Ellen.
So hi everyone, I'm Ellen. I'm the Teaching and Learning Coordinator with NTutor on Stream 2 of NTutor. So Noreen kind of gave you a bit of overview to the framework there, and I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about some of the resources, mainly the curriculum framework toolkit that kind of like manifested in, and give you a little bit of an idea of how it worked. So I'm just going to share on my screen now in a second. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So as Noreen said there, the framework's kind of designed around these 6 distinct themes when tutor, but then kind of really they're just very much interlinked concepts, and you're really trying to kind of like look at how you can help a student to become like the best version of themselves, and kind of how they can contribute to their community and their environment. And again, like I suppose one of the things with a very kind of defined project like NTutor that's got a limited life, you're kind of looking at how you can kind of sustain the ethos and the achievements of the project once it's kind of come to its completion. And I suppose like the main way that can kind of happen is in the real like working lives of staff and students, so the modules and the programs. And so when we were looking at the framework and how it's going to assist staff and students, like I suppose its real purpose is to kind of help all staff to engage in some level with the themes. So the concept of this framework is like this really clear resource to support staff in embedding NTutor themes in a really practical way. And when we're designing the toolkit, we were kind of looking at this like why, how, and what model. So it's kind of sometimes called the golden circle. So like when we're introducing the themes, we kind of say, why do we want to do this? Like, why is this theme important? And then how can you achieve it? What can you do in your teaching? What can you introduce in order to embed these themes? And what do you actually need to get there? So you're kind of like trying to help staff like prompt them to consider the themes, curate what can be like a really overwhelming amount of material, and then help them demonstrate the really good work that they're already doing. Because a lot of staff are already doing great stuff in terms of sustainability and EDI and all these things, but it's just really helping them demonstrate that. And also, I think, a lot of the time we support staff really well in terms of why we want them to do something, but maybe not so much in terms of like how you can practically get there. And so that's something that we wanted to kind of make really clear and easy for staff. And so kind of from this design process, we were looking at providing this like really tiered sort of just in time support. So staff can kind of engage at the level they want to. This is the curriculum toolkit, which is like basically a digital kind of web application that was developed. And the basis for this in terms of content was really just it was like based around this guiding principles document. So this is a full document that can be accessed here, and it was developed by all of the technological university leads involved in NTutor, along with kind of experts in their own institution. They developed this full guiding principles document, but the toolkit, although you can access the full thing of it there, it was like looking at breaking it down so that you have this kind of tiered level of engagement. So staff can kind of engage with it really quickly, easily, to the level that they are comfortable with. So it has this defined structure to kind of ensure that clarity and legibility and guide staff all the way through the process. So you have the 6 themes there along the bottom, but then when you go into each of the themes, they're always explored through these 3 kind of perspectives. So it's divided along the rationale, so the theory behind the theme, essentially the why, how this approach is intended to improve the student experience, the learning environment, why it's worthwhile. Then you have implementation, kind of its practical implementation, what these principles could look like in the curriculum, so like some examples of interventions, and kind of different ways that they can integrate it into their curriculum design. So you can see that structure then is carried through the whole toolkit for clarity. And it's quite surface level, really, because again, you're kind of looking like for people who are trying to meet the needs of people who, are just being introduced to these themes and really just want to get a quick introduction to them. And then you might have staff that are quite familiar with them, want to do a little bit more with them. And for those staff, we kind of have these kind of self-evaluation forms that they can go in and do a little bit more into more depth and kind of reflect on their own teaching and where they're sitting in terms of the themes. And these reflection questionnaires were really quite influenced by the UCC sustainability toolkit. And this mapping tool is kind of very much looking at the SDGs. Staff can reflect on how well they've embedded the sustainability development goals into their own teaching, and then it's kind of like mapped them visually, so they get a very quick snapshot of where they're sitting in terms of all the different themes, and are there ones that they might want to look more at, where are they doing really well in terms of them. And they might be like, it's very unlikely that someone's going to have all the SDGs really well represented in one module, but they get that insight into where they are doing a lot of work, and if they want to do more in the other areas, they can do that. And that's something that we then applied to these questionnaires. So this is an example of a questionnaire that was developed. So these were all developed along with colleagues across the technological university sector, like working in these specific areas in terms of the themes, to kind of hone like really meaningful questions with regard to reflecting on their, asking staff to reflect on their own practice. And we're looking at the moment, it's being developed into kind of a digital tool which will automatically kind of give you this kind of graphic of where you're sitting again in terms of the themes. And as I said before, I know more with the SDGs, like you might be perfectly happy to only be addressing a couple in your module or in your program, in your module, but it gives staff that kind of insight and snapshot into where they are, and if they want to kind of act or make changes. So it's really just giving them that kind of insight. So then the last section is supports. And again, like we worked with people in the different working in relation to the different themes to get like the really key supports. And curation is something that can be really challenging, I think, because if you're presenting staff with everything that's out there, they're just completely overwhelmed. But we try to like keep this section here to really just the very key supports. And then if staff do want to dig down a little bit further in terms of each of the themes, they can go into this further resources section here. So staff have the option then to kind of dig down a little bit further if that's something that they're interested in doing. So that's kind of the accessibility aspect of it. Just to mention really quickly, because I think Noreen kind of touched on it a bit there, that we wanted to give staff the opportunity to engage with all the teams on some level, we were kind of also looking with the framework to really make it like an intrinsic part of the module and program design process. And to achieve that, we kind of took this top-down and bottom-up approach. So we have staff that are really like advocates for the different themes. At the moment, we have our end-tutor champions, and they kind of disseminate the themes and promote these resources for us. We also kind of wanted buy-in from senior management and heads of department, and for that reason, we had this kind of design day last January, and we got feedback from them and like how we could make this of more benefit to staff and how we could kind of develop this into something that was really meaningful for them. So some of the feedback we got was like developing a signposting strategy and kind of mapping the design cycle of programs, identifying where the curriculum framework can be most useful, kind of communicating a real like toolkit of resources and menu of workshops to staff, identifying mentors. So as I mentioned, we have our champions to support rather than lead, because it needs to be very much a kind of a group effort, and that's something that we've brought through the whole kind of design of the curriculum framework workshops and resources, is that it's giving kind of agency to a whole team rather than depending on one or two people kind of pulling everyone else along, and to develop training for program boards, mapped professional accreditation, and allow for an iterative implementation approach. So this is some of the kind of diagrams we're working on to work with Carmel Brennan, as Noreen mentioned there, our Vice Registrar for Quality, to kind of map this to our program program approval process. And then this one looking more at the design process. So this is all something we're really kind of working on at the moment. The Lego Serious Play was mentioned there, and Sean's going to talk more about the program mapping and design workshop. And we've worked with a number of programs so far, and as Noreen mentioned there, the feedback's been really good. And again, like this is a highly iterative process, and we're learning and making tweaks all the time. And today is very much going to be part of that. So this is kind of we're developing with you, looking at how we can do this a bit in a more digital format. And so far, we've been looking more at in-person workshops. So yeah, this is kind of a snapshot of the different stages we've gone through in developing these resources and the framework. And as I said, you know, this is what we've done so far. Today is going to be part of that kind of process of kind of learning and reevaluating and kind of developing. So this is something that will go on and on. So that's kind of the kind of snapshot of the curriculum framework toolkit and different resources we have at the moment. And so I think I'll hand over to Sean now.
Yep, thanks, Ellen.
Yeah.
Okay, so folks, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the program structure and mapping part, which would be generally stage 4 in Geraldine O'Neill's program design process. So when we were looking at program structure and mapping, and we were thinking of two things: what tools are out there that are available for staff when they're designing programs, and how we can, you know, use these resources or amend them to sort of include some of the themes we wanted staff to be thinking about and integrating into the program design, but also how we could just adapt them and start creating tools for our staff to use. And the first one that struck out was the UCD program outcome mapping matrix tool that UCD were using. And a lot of you will have seen something like this, where in this case, the program outcomes would be listed on the left, and then the modules would be listed across the top horizontally. And you can see that there's generally three things. It's where a module touches on an outcome and whether it's assessed or not. And this was Geraldine O'Neill's one, as we say. And I thought this was an interesting tool to use, and you may have seen something very similar to this.
Sean, there's nothing sharing there. Should there be
sorry.
an image?
Yes,
yeah,
there should
maybe
be.
I just
Hang on.
thought.
I'm going to stop sharing and resharing. Apologies. Sometimes this happens.
And I just for people that are from outside of Ireland, just so they know, Geraldine O'Neill is a colleague or a partner with an organisation called the National Forum in Ireland. She works in UCD, University College Dublin, but she's done an amazing work in Ireland in the area of assessment and programme design. So we lean a bit on her literature, just to be aware of that. And I know you've got some reference sources as well, Sean, that you'll share with people, just because people might know who Geraldine is. So that's what I just mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, for our European friends on the call. Thanks.
Indeed. Yeah, it's a good idea. Well, yeah, we never start from scratch here. You're always working with where other people have produced, and we were just looking around for what was available. So as I said, this is the UCD program outcome mapping tool. It's like an Excel sheet. We have our program outcomes here vertically along the left, and we have the modules here. And again, this is just color coded. It's when they were introduced, when they were further developed, programs, whether they're assessed or not is the A. And I thought this was a nice tool, and some of you will have seen something very similar to this, I'm sure. And then, but I also liked Knight's mapping of a program assessments, where they went into more detail about how things were assessed, whether it was formative or self-assessed or peer-assessed. And so we created our own board that was something like this. Now we wanted something, when we were trialing this, we wanted in-person stuff. So we created our own board, but just when we were designing it, we put the program outcomes along the top, then you have the modules listed. And then what we had were these cards. And the cards are based on the themes. There are 6 themes for NTutor. So this would be an academic integrity and assessment card, and there's some tips at the start. And and of course, our staff can head on to Ellen's resource as well to get more in-depth stuff. And then what we have here is the status, assessed, and description. I'll explain this on the next slide a little more. But generally, the idea would be if you were the lead in a module here, you would look at the program outcome that your module touches on, and then you would put the card down, and then you would start to fill out the details. Now, some of these don't become apparent to staff, and this is one of the things about running these workshops, and we'll talk about this a little more later, where as a result of modularization, where people are plugging modules into courses and different things, it's often not clear to program teams when students are first meeting an outcome or a topic or a particular subject. So as people lay down these cards, it becomes very visible as to where and when outcomes are being touched upon, and then whether they're assessed and so on. So in relation to the cards, the front of the card, as I said, has some tips, and you can links to Helen's resources, toolkit and stuff. For the status, we're using a traffic light system of stickers in the person workshops, where it's green if students are being introduced to the topic for the first time. It's yellow if it's being developed, as in someone else has introduced the topic and you're now going to develop upon that. And it's red for this is the module where they're actually showing they have achieved this outcome, you know. Then we have our assessed area here, and we've borrowed from, in relation to these cards, the physical ones we had borrowed from the good old ABC Learning Design Workshops, if you're familiar with that. It's a gold star, whether it's a summative assessment, and a silver star if it's formative assessment. And then you have a description field for people to write to describe how the outcome is being introduced or assessed, and maybe also if you've been prompted by the academic integrity. So for example, if this was an outcome that you had previously been assessing due with a written report that, you know, was due and was handed up in one go, you would be concerned about the academic integrity of that currently with ChatGPT. So you'd be having to rethink that assessment and how are you going to do it now. So that might be what you're talking about in the description of how you're going to tackle that issue. And of course, there are lots of different themes, and the cards are, if you can see my camera here, they're like little, let me see if I can stop sharing for a second. Just sorry now, folks. I'll just hold up the cards just so you can see the physical size of them. If you can see, this would be, ooh, my background is playing havoc. There we go. So there are little cards like this. They're this size in your hands. That's what the cards look like physically. And what you do with the cards is you lay them out on a board like so, and people write and make notes. And obviously, as I was saying, it won't become apparent sometimes. Like in this one, people haven't put in the stickers yet because we're not sure what's come first, because we're going to have to move these around and see, is it appropriate that this outcome is being tackled in semester 2 or later on than another, and so on and so forth. So it's often part of the working out. Also, you can see, you know, which outcomes are being overassessed, are being touched on too much. We've had the experience where we have a program outcome where, for example, a typical program outcome we've had is, you know, people have to be able to, you know, show they can collaborate with others and what have you. And that like 4 modules have chosen a group presentation to be the assessment for that. But it only becomes apparent in workshops like this when people are talking about what they're thinking of doing, that, oh, we had 4 people over a year, we had 4 group presentations, and we were like, okay, well, either this outcome is being overassessed, or is there another means of expression we can have for other than group presentation to achieve that outcome? And stuff like that becomes readily apparent when you're doing workshops like this. So it's also been very helpful to have, as you can see here, people will point to the board and talk about, you know, what we're achieving and where the students are. It kind of depersonalizes a lot of the program design process, where often it's people looking across the table at each other and getting into arguments and discussions. So we found that the boards are also very good at kind of diffusing and depersonalizing program design, where you're all looking at the same data visually represented as to where the students are, when they're meeting which topic. Another advantage we found is really does encourage, as well as letting faculty, and it's been very useful often, and we'll talk about this in a moment with the online board, where you have, say, associate faculty who have been brought in to do a module in a program, and they're not really sure where their module fits in the program and what the students are doing the rest of the year and stuff. You know, they've been brought in to deliver a module or a couple of modules across a program. It makes it readily apparent where they're slotting in. And also it encourages a nice visual representation of what you're doing and where your students are and their journey. Now, obviously, this is the physical one, and we've gone through a number of iterations of that. But what we've also been working on is a digital version, and this is a Miro board. I don't know if many of you are familiar with the tool Miro. I'm going to pop a link in the chat. That is because you can get a free educational license, educational plan with Miro. You can, if I share this with you now, you'd be able to use it, no problem. But just even to create your own boards, you can get a free educational license for Miro. It's a great tool for collaboration. And this is the digital version of that board. Now, because it's digital, we can do a number of things. The physical board was so big, we could only have 8 learning outcomes, which is usually it's recommended you have somewhere between 6 and 12 learning outcomes for a program, depending on its length and complexity. But we could go for the full 12 with the digital board. And we still have a number of rows down here. We have 6 in the physical board. We've added a couple more here if you need it, but that's a usual semester in in Ireland would be about 6 modules, depending on their credits and what have you. But of course, when you're doing an online version, not only can we do that, but we can actually, it can become almost infinite, where you can have, here would be 2 semesters of a 3-year course where you'll have one board, and for every semester you will be able to map the program outcomes for each year and each semester and where they're being touched on and what people are doing. In relation to the cards, we've created the digital version of the cards here, and I'll just move over, sorry, move the board over here. And here for the status, we have our stickers with their little key here. So if I'm introducing this learning outcome, I'll put my sticker status there. I can also type in if I want. So I'm introducing my assessment is formative or summative, and say we're doing a formative assessment on that. And then of course you can just click in and type your description of how you're assessing that, or what you're concerned about. If it's digital transformation, let's say this is a program and I used to deliver this module face-to-face in class, but now it's part of a part-time online master's. So my concern is, how do I do the activities or the assessment that I used to do, which was an in-class presentation? How do I bring that online? So I would talk about that example. And then what you do is you can grab your card, and the information will follow with it, and you can drop it into the relative box for the program outcome you are going to do. And the idea then would be, as the team work, and you can all work on this simultaneously, or if Ellen or oh no, I think this is the one that I currently have shared. I've created this one to share with you specifically. But if we go to the program outcome mapping one for this one here, Noreen is in here, as you can see, and she's been filling out some examples here from, this is an example we were using on what was that master's, Noreen? Was it?
It's adapted from the Masters in Business Analytics. Can I share that URL to that one, Sean?
Yeah, you can. Well, actually,
okay.
I was going to share the URL to both. And
okay.
People can, by the way, when you get a license, you can duplicate this board, you can keep it, you can use it with your teams. It's there to be used, but you can begin to see how you can build, as I say, a really good board showing how each module plugs into each program outcome for each semester and each year. And you will begin to see, as I say, where the students are meeting the outcomes first, which ones are being overassessed. Another trend we found just in our own experience of delivering this workshop is, particularly with masters and postgraduate courses, is that the sort of discipline specific knowledge and skills, the hard skills, were being assessed well, but often the soft skills, like being able to turn around and talk to colleagues about why the data you were mining was important and what changes they have to make as a result of it, they were being underrepresented in the board. So it became apparent very easily, very visually to people that, oh, we need to beef up our assessments that include these outcomes of people being able to tell a story with data and to get across and motivate people to change as a result of the data they had gathered and the analysis they had done, things like that. So,
sorry, Sean, there's a question there, or a hand up from Manuela. You want to come in?
Yes, sorry, because I'm not very sure that I understood what you explain now. Maybe because you speak very fastly for us, and we are not mother language, and I have to ask you if you speak slowly, because I think that it's better for us for understanding it well. But the reason of my question is who the student should use it, or the professor? I sorry, but I didn't understand.
Oh, yes, it's for the program team. It's now you can share it and show students, and we have had program teams, groups of lecturers who are working on a program together.
Okay.
We have had them suggest that they would show it to students, because it makes clear to students why you're doing this module now and why. But it is created by the professors, the group of professors, not a single professor. This is the idea. It's a team of teachers and professors who work on a program, a degree program, a master's together. And it shows what topics my module is covering, how I am assessing them. And then I will also see, if you're working on a program with me, I will see when and where you were covering certain topics, how you were assessing them. And we will begin to communicate and see how our program fits together and how our students, when and where they meet different topics and assessment types and themes, and which topics we're over assessing, which topics we're under assessing, and where in the process. So is that a bit clearer for you, Emmanuel?
No, yes,
Yeah.
I hope yes. So, but this platform, if I understood well, this platform, the professors and the students use it, and on one hand, for the students to check their progress, and for the professor to check the development of the course, or to suggest something, because it's very new for us, because we don't use this, but it's very interesting for us. And I want to ask you the reason about it, but I think that I understood. If you indicate me that I understood, I'm very happy, because I'm not sure, but I think yes. Okay.
I think, Emanuela, the Miro, the system itself is used for team design. So it's actually an industrial standard tool that anyone who's working in teams can use. So this board that we've created in Miro is specifically for a group of colleagues that are coming together to design a new program. So it can be used afterwards to show students, but for the purposes now, it's for academics working together when they're designing a new program. And the idea is that we've all the modules down the side, all the learning outcomes at the top, and we're mapping the activity at the module level to our program level. And it's something that a lot of academics struggle with, because we tend to focus on, okay, I'm going to deliver this module, and we lose focus of the bigger picture of the whole module, of the whole program. So by using a tool like this, you can see visually how all the modules fit together, how there is crossover, and how maybe there's contradiction, and what works and what doesn't work. So the Miro board itself is, in this case, it's for academic, but Miro, the tool itself, has it's a great tool if you wanted to use for teamwork, particularly if they are a dispersed team. Miro itself is a great tool, but this board specifically is for academics designing a new course.
Okay. Thank you. I understand. Yes. Okay.
I would say as well, though, we do like using this with students as well for different tasks, because because it is, what is nice about this is it is an industry standard tool. If I went and I worked in an employer next week and I was working in design process at all, there's a very good chance we're going to be using this tool in the workplace. It's quite industry standard. So that is the general idea. It's a mapping tool for people to come together and collaborate. And we all, I don't know, different universities have different practices in different countries, but certainly what we have found in Ireland, the UK, and possibly America as well, is with modularization, where everyone is plugging in modules into different programs, and I'm teaching a module and it might be shared across a couple of programs, or It may be, you know, I've been teaching it for a number of years and I'm changing things in it because I'm finding some things aren't working. But I may not, some of my colleagues that are working on the same program might have also made changes, but there isn't one place where we can go and actually see how those changes work and how those assessment methods, the changes we've made over time, how they're fitting together in a holistic view for the students. And what is great about this tool is it just gives you, after everyone has done their individual piece of work and filled out, well, I'm doing this here, this, then, it gives you a wonderful visual overview, semester by semester and year by year, of what your students are actually encountering and when they're encountering it in relation to topics and in relation to outcomes and assessment types. And as I say, we have created boards like this. So if you want to, I've put the link to Miro in there if you, and that's particularly for the educational license, which is free and very easy to get. But also we'll share the board with you, and obviously you can make any changes you want. And
yeah, I was just going to come in there, Sean. What we might do, it might be an action out as a result of this session today, because it's going to give people need time to reflect as well after learning about the resources that we have in place for program design. But one suggestion I might make is that we might replicate the template and model that we use, Sean, here in ATU, and label it an EU Green model. You know, we could copy it and just specifically create the board for EU Green and then share that version.
Oh, you mean like you mean exactly like this?
Oh, yeah, even done.
Yeah. Here's what we created earlier.
Here's what I created earlier.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. But you know, one thing we might just check, what we might put into the boards to help people, Sean, is there's a little diagram for the education principles that's in our education strategy in EU Green. So I'll share that with you. And we might, before we share it, we might just put in that table so that people can help with their own guiding as well when they're using the cards. Thanks, Sean.
Exactly, yeah. And we can add a video, but we have created this. And I suppose one of the nice things about digital tools like this is, as well as allowing collaboration asynchronously and over dispersed distances, is they are very easy to alter, to edit and to duplicate once you have done it. So anyone can come in here and just change, you know, the language from English and edit the text or add what they want, and then they can just duplicate the whole board every time they want to use it and just share it with that particular team. And we have had good feedback on this board from program teams who are beginning to use it and who are beginning to go back to it more and more to see how stuff fits, not only for new programs, but actually for the also snapshots and revisions and what's the word I'm looking for, review of programs, where you want to see how they've evolved over time, because not everyone will be aware of changes that individual team members and lecturers and colleagues will have made. So it's nice to give a snapshot over time, and then as people, if they make changes, they can go in and add them and you'll see where you're at. So yeah, that's more or less the digital version of the tool. As I said, we're having some good feedback from teams who are beginning to use this and go back more and more to it and check and see where they are. It's become kind of a bit of a Bible or a touchstone piece where people can go in and just see where I fit into this program. And as I said, new staff who are being brought in and who are plugging into a program, and they know what they're teaching, but they don't know what they're teaching and how they're assessing fits in with everyone else on the same program. It's a very nice way to get people up to speed with where they're at, you know, new team members and people who are coming in and plugging into the boards. I would be curious, the matrix itself obviously is not new. Are there many people here who use something similar to a matrix like this to track program outcomes and assessment in institutions? Anyone on the meeting? Even if it's an Excel sheet or anything like that? No?
No. Maybe, Sean, can you share the link to that, the EU Green one, and we'll maybe get people into it and let them have a closer up look at it.
Did you share the other one, didn't you?
I shared the example one we'd done.
Yeah. Well, we can let people for the moment before,
Okay,
because I might package the EU Green one with a little video showing how to use that as well. But if people click on the link that Noreen has put up there, the outcome mapping template in the chat, and go on in, and they'll just see how easy it is to use. It'll take a minute to load.
And we'll just talk through the example that's there. Yeah.
And this is the example that's here if you want to talk to it. But just very quickly about the navigation, you can use to zoom in, you can use the zooms here on the left and right. But I find if you have a roller in your mouse, that's very good. And then to navigate around, if you hold down the space bar, you see the hand appear, and you can pull left and right to see who you are. So if you want to zoom in here to what Noreen has done, we can look at these particular standards, or we can then zoom across here and create our own card and drop it into a space. I don't know if anyone wants to give that a go. Click on the link and pop in and we'll see who's there. As I can see Noreen here. Are you able to hop in easily enough, Karina, as well? We'll begin to see your mouse. Oh, I've moved that board. Come back board.
Does anybody have any other questions on it, I suppose, at this point?
See Ellen's in here now as well.
I can't get into that link now.
Oh, can you not?
I have to sign in properly, don't I? It's just I don't have it open in the background.
Ah, right.
Is that the? I wonder are others having the same trouble? It's just asking me to sign in formally, and I think others would need to have an account set up. Maybe would they?
No, anyone with the link. I'm just gonna.
Or maybe I'm going into the wrong link. Okay.
Yeah, hang on. No, it could have been. I'll just pop in this one again and just see it should. This one should be work for anyone with the link.
Okay.
Just if you
the
double
other
check.
one's asking me for my password. Oh yeah.
Ah, okay. You can configure it that some people have. Yeah. See. Access. That one should work now for people. Because I said, can you try that one again there? Ah, here we have a visiting developer. They don't know who you are because you're not in our team. That's someone.
Right, I'm getting requests in, so anyone that's coming in, I'm giving you access to them. To it, so we should have.
I'm in there now.
Okay.
So.
So if you hold down the space bar, you can move it around. And if you have a scroller on your mouse, I find that very handy for zooming in and out. Ellen's adding some cards there as well.
So if I want to check a card.
Zoom into a card there and add some stickers to it.
I duplicate the card, is it?
Well, you can duplicate. I've generally made enough that it's fine, but you can also duplicate it to make extra ones. Or you can add some stickers to the card. You can just double click in to type on them. And then you can just move the card into the spot on the board you would like.
Okay, so this would work very well if you could get a program board team together and you dedicated some time together to work through. Now, first of all, they'd need to understand the cards individually. Do you provide them, Sean, in a PowerPoint deck, the cards, so people can familiarize themselves with the meaning behind the cards as to what they mean?
We have a PowerPoint deck, and we're going to create a little video for this, and you can actually embed videos in it as well. That'll give a little intro and an instruction. Oh yeah, look.
I'm just thinking about the kind of the steps to engage with the program design board. You need to first of all understand the cards and what they mean. You'd also have to have an outline of what the board, how the board works, and maybe that's a video demo.
Well, it is, but also you'd have to meet and you'd have to have agreed the program outcomes for each thing. So that would be part of it, you know.
So do we have it like done as step by step? Like first we've got, you do the program, you work as a team, you get the program learning outcomes. Second, you agree on the modules, but the modules then have to be brought into this program design session in order to get, I suppose, a very rounded or a holistic kind of approach to the design in relation to the education principles.
That's it.
Yeah. So, anybody have any questions? You're all very quiet. You're taking it all in. Cecilina, you always have a question. You're being quiet today.
It's the type of activity that would have to be customized to the team, and that's why we're doing the workshop rather than actually doing it. But if there is a group, I know from the chats there's a few program developments underway, and if a group wanted to customize a board with our assistance, give us a shout and we'll assist,
And it may be a case for the next time that there's a staff development week, Cecilina, that we actually do this as a workshop activity for program teams when they're physically on site in a staff development week. And the plan, when I was coming in June, unfortunately I didn't make it, I was bringing a set of the cards and the board with me. And the idea was we were going to experiment and put people in tables to design a program, But it is challenging. This is more of an introduction session, so people get an idea and a feel for the tools that are available and what can be customized to suit. And maybe it's a recommendation through the education team that we will have a design board for each team to consider when they're putting together their program. And when they go through that validation process in EU Green, that maybe they have to produce evidence. Yes, we did a workshop together. We looked at all the themes and the cards and we considered this, this, and this in our learning outcomes or in our assessment strategy. So we might have to think about that. Cecilina, I'm just thinking of you and how we might bring that back into the PPDP development work, So any questions, anybody? Okay. Anything else you want to cover there, Sean?
Not really. Just the digital version is also very handy. One of the things we did find is in the actual workshop, when we were doing it face to face with the physical cards and the boards, is they were very good activities and a team was coming together and understanding each other. But the capture of the information was difficult. You could take photographs of the board and what have you. So the nice thing about the digital version again is it's really good for capturing that moment in time and then for adjusting it later on. So we would envision that even if we do the in-place workshops, that people would be making a digital version for keeping and capturing and for adjusting later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's very rare that it's sort of once and done. It's very much an iterative process. So it's a form of documenting it and reviewing the progress as the team goes along. So the digital version has proven to be a great advantage after the physical workshop.
So can I ask, is there questions? What would you like to see following this? So those that are on the call that are at the stage of program design in EU Green are working together in relation to one of the joint degree programs. What next step or what would you like to see as a support if you were to engage with this digital tool for collaboration? Are you interested in the template? Are you interested in kind of an outline? These are the 6 steps we recommend. and along with the template board. And then obviously it has to be electronically shared because we're all so dispersed. But there could be a follow-up session the next time that we come together as a group, that we actually do a physical program design session face-to-face on a table. Does anybody want to put in the chat, or you can raise your hands? What would you like to see next? Or is there anything you didn't understand, or what would you like to see from this that would support your program development? You are unable to use your microphone. Oh.
Oh, hang on. I'll double check what the permissions are here.
Would there be? Yeah. It would be interesting, Cecilina, that if one program or all of the pilot programs, we have 4 or 5, that they were to undertake this. And as Sean has said, and Noreen, like, this is a live board that all the team can have ownership of and can manage as the program progresses and you know, further develops in the years ahead. So and maybe they need to have a separate workshop for each of those. How many are in the pilot? Is it 4? It's 4, is it? I can't hear you. Yeah. Now, if there was a workshop for each program, well, there's 4, there is in the pilot, and many of them are from ATU. Some of the members, there's a couple of members, or a couple of colleagues from ATU that are in those 4 programs. So what would it take, Sean, to do a workshop that's just with the Miro board? If you had one program board team, what would we need them for? An hour?
Yeah, you could do it in an hour and a half, 90 minutes or an hour, but they would have to have, for this to be really useful, they'd have to have the program outcomes hashed out.
Okay. So they'd have to come with the program outcomes. Program learning outcomes. And in effect, they probably do have them because they've just been approved for developing their program. So they would have submitted, possibly, I assume, maybe I'm wrong, program learning outcomes. They would have had an outline of that.
Yeah, if they have the program outcomes, it's no problem. We can do a workshop. We can just introduce the board, get people using it and explaining it, and see, it is a process. After an hour, they could go away and keep adding to it and using it for the team. But it's not a problem. But once they have the program outcomes, yeah, just an hour would be fine.
Okay. So we need to identify one member to start, at least one program, one pilot team that's ready to go that will do it, but they need to come with their program learning outcomes.
That's right.
Agreed in advance. So how will we find out who's ready? So we will have to put it back out through maybe Elzbieta, Cecilina, or yourself, and we find out who is ready to do the workshop and engage with the Miro board, or engage with this program design process online. So you're going to talk to them. Okay. Even if we could get one to go, one to start, because it's very difficult to have done that today because there's all different groups. I thought maybe we're going to do it in breakout rooms, but everybody needed to know what was available first. So this session is about understanding what we have, and then we can decide what we want to take from the resources that we have. So I think even getting one pilot group to do this first, we will learn a lot, and then we begin to see, well, yes, they like the template, the cards work well, but maybe we need something else. So maybe what we'll do, Cecilina, is we'll talk to each other about that, will we? And we'll identify a program. And then Sean and Noreen and Ellen, I'll talk to you and we'll come up with a plan, all right, as to when we might do this. Okay?
Yeah.
Is that fair
Great.
enough? Yeah. And okay. So I think that's all for today, isn't it?